Alrighty. Okay, I got the audio issue right on board. I also got the commentary done around here, along with emojis or emoticons. Alrighty. Well, I'm not gonna read that just yet. I gotta finish up discussing more about this and what is it? Remember last few paragraphs. That's something I want to actually talk about. Alright, if only to be another example of how to do things well or poorly. Yeah, referring to just writing a game about modern war and recently, even though that I'm not looking at this as retrospect, because retrospectively the discussion with this is that it's not what it is now, where the situation in Iraq is way different. So who's to say that people are going to talk about this with current issues now, especially when it comes to many things has occurred around Iraq and around the region? Because now, what is it? It's now also Iran, Syria, Jordan, and then you have pretty much the rest of the Arab world. Not the Middle East, but the Arab world. So this is me excluding the situation that's going with many of the stands, not just Afghanistan, and not solely on also Pakistan. But yeah, that's pretty much the situation. So that's the case with me looking at in retrospect. Now, going into here, what else? Ah, this is what I wanted to cover. Making this point, which is really great, is this. Because it has hopes that the situation is slowly changing, citing the most unexpected catalyst, Nintendo's Wii Fit. Not only does the peripheral attract a whole new audience to the gaming market, it also affects them on a deeply personal level. The key to changing public perception lies in the letting people know that games can be much more than simply sitting on the couch shooting at aliens. As silly as it seems to hardcore gamers, Wii Fit just does just that. It's ironic to think that Nintendo's focus on a wider audience. I think this is also showing the case of the game just being a standard mission shooter. Now looking over retrospectively, is that this is not the case anymore. There's so many shooters now that the FPS is actually doing so great with so many genres intermixing them. A good example has to do with how Titanfall really shaked up the industry, because you have pretty much Respawn Entertainment, which many of the former creators and people were part of Infinity War, the original Infinity War that made Call of Duty, and with the history of that, they wanted to deviate from Medal of Honor, which they first helped up with the first game ever, Medal of Honor Allied Assault, on back in like the 90s and such. And they pretty much innovate so much with that. I mean, to the point that even COD leads up to it. And even then, recently, when it comes to Apex Legends, you pretty much had so many popular games like Fortnite, and I believe some point PUBG, because that's still a very playable battle royale, especially in Asia, where it's it does showcase that there's so many innovation, and for Apex, that's pretty much FPS. And you know, you have old ones like Halo coming back with MCC, and also the fact with it being a PC, the new game coming out, and so many other games, it does showcase a new way to play games. And then you also have games like Spec Up the Lines, which really challenges people. And another game I want to put is Darkest Dungeons, I believe. Let me actually search this up. Actually, no. Let me search it up in this window. Because this game I'm referring to has a morality. Its morality is not impacted in the game. You know, there's karma and such with playing. But what it does is it makes you question about your actions towards humans. There's gonna be so many games I'm talking about. I think most famously, people would say Undertale, the fact that you can't kill people in order to actually progress to the good ending. You know, you got to work for that, and you know there is actually a way to play called the genocide route, which is not bad because the truth of the game, and I'm not gonna go ahead with the spoilers because I actually don't know much about it either, is that to get a genocide route, people would not label you as evil or monstrous. I mean, that's the case. I mean, you know, like other games, that they pretty much try to chastise you. It won't punish you. I mean, Bioshock usually comes up, but I'm thinking with Dishonored because Dishonored, they always criticize you if you do like bad things like kill people, even though it could definitely be justified because Jesus Christ, the guards are just really bloodthirsty and just sons of bitches. Saying that because that's the way I treat the game, where I killed people who try to kill even their own guards if they didn't like them, or treated other civilians like shit and stuff like that. But no. You got the bad ending. And it's not just because it creates diseases and all that such. But no, the actual characters start treating you like shit, like way in the mission, the end of the mission, even though they're gonna give you crap before, so what gives? It's just stupid. Also, I found it in the game. Darkest Dungeon. The thing with Darkest Dungeon is that its gameplay consists of you. Come on. My fingers are. Ugh. They're pretty much butter right now. I wonder what gives. But yeah, Darkest Dungeon. Focusing on a gameplay where it's pretty much a turn-based game, and you have many players that you go in dungeons with them. But the issue with them is that you don't have permanent members. They're usually disposable. They're disposable in a way where if they become fatigue, what is it, battle fatigue. But the truth for it is that they pretty much start getting like mad, filled with madness, trying to get PTSD, and start becoming horror, along with actual physical fatigue, such. So I think in that case I would just call it battle fatigue. But just know that I'm not trying to salt it, but it's literally how people would feel if they succumb to what is it? Some of the characters dealing with, because they pretty much put in your head that in the game you can actually dispose of them or even have them killed in order for, you know, not to pay them, not to seek them treatment and such. And that's part of the gameplay. I mean, I remember that Sterling actually started talking about the game and infamously talk about how this game perfectly encompasses, in a gameplay way, part of the gameplay loop itself, that you just disposing characters and players once you don't have much use for them or you don't want to take care of them because there's too much hassle, and it's much easier to play the game. Showcases that, oh crap, it showcases how really how messed up, how deplorable the situation is if you're a pretty much a management. Jim Starlin pretty much stated that it's like you're playing like a gaming CEO, just disposing many of your employees once you don't have no use for them. I referring to just instant crunching, lack of benefits, and just instant firing to many companies doing that with so many people just so they could um, benefit their own needs, usually just to accumulate cost or maximize profits, even though they could afford it. And I look at it as because in Darkest Dungeon, you can actually play with actually having to not dispose all the players and try to be patient in doing that. But the thing with it is that it's the hardest route to do it. It's showcasing that there's no artificial consequence with it. The consequence is yourself and how much you can put into the gameplay itself, the game, which does put in an interpersonal level. So something I did want to make it the game, 6 Days in Fallujah back then, when it was announced around 2009, is that, and this showcases the importance of the game has not showcased any gameplay mechanics fully, just only a demo as such. And actually, I do want to compare it later, especially with the new gameplay and how it is that they didn't know what the game is. People focus on the narrative. And looking back in 2009 with many games, not just FPSs, but also Gears of War clones and stuff like that, mainly because shooters itself had a label of it not being so revolutionary. I mean, the most popular game people stated that, oh my god, its own companies was COD 4, but that was more in a people like to say in a narrative sense. Even though I have to argue that the game's best moments, one of the moments has to be the AC-130 gunship mission. Being a gameplay mission itself really hits home on what it is. It's a mission where you pretty much are an invisible character who, you're not one of the characters at all. You are actually unnamed pilots, and regardless of what difficulty you play in, hell, even a veteran, because a lot of people, if they ever try to beat the game, COD 4 and veteran, there's just grenade spans every day. But in that game, you can't fail. The only time you can fail is just do a game on screen. You can't get killed, and that really hits home to crap. This game is pretty easy, and it showcases how, yeah, that can be a bit of a disturbing thing. It showcases that people who operate drones in modern warfare, i.e., the gameplay of COD 4 and COD 4 title itself showcases that's a thing, and there's even a whole conversation about how drone striking and stuff like that was a big thing, especially since that later become a big thing since the Obama administration. Because what is it? COD 4 came around when Bush was still around in government, and people really didn't know much about drones and stuff like that. I remember distinctly that the IGN review around that time said that you're operating like a military enforcement vehicle, like in real life and such, because it does look like that. I mean, That's the creepiness factor of all that. And I have a feeling that later on people start actually taking that in huge account as part of COD 4 legacy of how it shook a industry to expand more. And I do wonder if Six Days Evolution would have a mechanic like that, because what we're seeing in new gameplay now is that it's going to encompass that. It's not going to be a Gears of War clone. It's not going to be a third-person shooter. It's going to be a first-person shooter, and it's going to look into procedure generation towards house-to-house clearing, and how each uh, firefight you're going to would be something that would be a factor, especially with having a bunch of civilians, because of many of the Rocky locals, which goes into the actual historical background, and narrative of the game. But the way I look at it is, when it comes to gameplay and narrative, because they can definitely go with Crash. However, they can have some good sets and onsets. It's also probably me, because I'm looking more on the mechanical side than the narrative side. Because what is it? The consensus now is that it seems like a lot of people are not really talking about it. Only some people, once any news videos related to the game comes up, so it really just becomes a topic of discussion, and just popular media, once it starts hitting with new information, it's not an overall topic people don't really discuss. If they do, it will be usually people will be discussing on current issues that already exist, like conversation of uh, weapons of weapons of destruction. Really, I was about to say mass destruction, but WMDs it's a touchy subject. Pretty much war crimes, uh, relating to weapon rarely. Like, you pretty much have chemical agents. That's the main thing, and you also have other issues related to that. To the modern day and in the Battle Fallujah, people like to always point back with the use of. I keep on thinking of mustard gas, but no. I'm thinking of the Kurds. The use of voice oscillators when it comes to many locals. There's like power contagious, but there's also other things which I have a feeling that if people actually really do talk about the issues when it came to coalition forces in the Middle East, they would definitely talk more about the use of Iranian shells, the effects of trust and mistrust when it comes to certain demographic groups with coalition forces, and along with insurgencies, and the effects of coalition forces when it comes to use of disposal chemical agents like burning plastic and other deadly stuff within camps and impacting their health and stuff. There's a lot of topics, which, one thing about it, it's something they didn't talk about it back then, and slowly it's something that is starting to becoming a little bit more talked about. It's not going to be until like some decades later that people will definitely talk about what's happened in 2000s, because there's just so many things so controversial about it. But yeah. As far as I'll finish off with pretty much the whole Wii Fit and stuff like that, is that it showcases how the Wii Fit Ward has brought many gamers and many people into uh, the theme and understanding of the game, which is just, well, for Wii, it's pretty much exercise. Everybody's exercising in their own time. They're understanding the benefits of it and understanding that it's actually impacting them itself, the actual gameplay. It's an impactful experience, which showcases an immersion. I believe the whole idea that um, video games is interactive media, that making it very immersive is a very tough thing that a lot of video games don't do. And if they hit that, then that's just a huge accomplishment. Get someone gets sucked into a media by actually living and understanding it in real time. That is the beauty of video games. Wii Fit, very much as it did, showcases the fitness of everything. And I believe in Fit 6 Days in Fallujah, the new one where it's going to be procedure generated with levels and such, would bring forth an immersion of the fear and the horror of how chaotic and maddening the Battle of Fallujah really was, because that is something in Modern War that it is pretty frightening, which is uh, the intensity of combat, and trying to actually go charge forth and actually go into an unsuspected realm that you don't know the hell what it is inside. You're just going to see it at first with nothing, and you have to abide by limitations where you have to protect yourself, you have to protect your teammates, and you got to protect the civilians who get crossed in crossfire. I mean, that's the thing that I have a tricky understanding of why people are trying to understand with what was occurring in the Battle of Fallujah, because that was a controversial thing with the coalition forces and not much of the insurgents, because you also have stories of many of them using them as hostages, along with them also being embedded into insurgents themselves, because one of the frightening things in combat is that you can't tell who is an enemy or who is friendly. That showcases it. I mean, one of the frightening things that exist on currently would be on green on blue, and having former Afghan securities usually would just shoot you in the back if multiple reasons. One could be because an extent is that they actually were working searches to, hey, it probably family was probably being held in a violent situation between the Taliban or other insurgents, for example. And yeah, that is a disturbing thing that does exist. And it's not a thing that's exclusive of it. I mean, the Vietnam War for the U.S. was a big indicator when it came to many people having so much distrust with the local Vietnamese because of the Viet Cong, and the handling of that was just so damaging to the psyche that a lot of people actually treated a bunch of people awfully, locals especially. I mean, that's another reason why the situation there was difficult. But that just showcases that. So the way I could think about it would be Squad. It's not like Squad 4, but you have to you gotta play like with Squad 4. It's that's the thing. I'll definitely talk about it once I talk about the VR. But anywho, I gotta get started with the freaking review and stuff. But yeah, that was the article about this. Making a game out of today's war. People keep on talking about the narrative and not really talking about the gameplay stunt. I do believe that that's going to be a discussion once the game actually does come out. Because the game will come out. The world is way different than what it is back then. And that goes to show how times have changed and media has changed. But yeah, let me actually read some of the comments before leaving. I swear we should just string up all those treacherous bastards asking Germans how they remember battles in World War II. Sarcasm, sarcasm. Okay, yep. This was like... Okay, yeah, this is on... This is like 2010. Yeah, so people actually commented some... Okay, the dates are odd, so... Okay. I proposed a game similar to Phoenix Wright, where an employee at the U.S. Justice Department just investigates and prosecute war crimes. The complex of the game comes when you encounter a case of war crimes within your own government and must slog through truth commissions, political pressure from both sides, and certain media outlets digging into your past and often fabricating links that discredit you. I'll definitely will like that. But I do wonder if this person actually just wanted to refer to Phoenix Wright as more in the investigation side of Phoenix Wright, because that's the thing with Phoenix Wright. It's not much of a lawyer. Um, Not much of a lawyer thing, but a bit more of investigation. Even though they actually try to do their best not to do it, it does seem like that. From time to time, especially with how you handle cases, because truth of the matter is that lawyers are not private investigators, but they do use some techniques. Cross-referencing is one thing, but yeah, also being into doing political matters between two different sides. Yeah, I'll be interested with that, but I do wonder how much they're going to extend, because politics and games, the politics that are set within the game realm, is oddly weird if they're trying to mimic real life. So yeah, I do want to see a game like that in the future, because political games is not a thing that exists. The keyword for realistic games is not fun. Fun isn't a word that is only true for gamers when used in the phrase fun and games. Yeah, talking about fun. All the Weber needs is to change a rock to a fake Middle Eastern country and slap Tom Clancy's name on it. Oh, those have issues that will shut the hell up. Yeah, that's the thing with Tom Clancy. I mean, some of the things do refer and mimic things. I mean, damn, the 90s, like Without Remorse or some of the other books. Well, Rainbow Six, referring to Middle Eastern threats and cell terrorist networks was the thing. But in fairness, in the 90s, people, well, even before in the modern day, they actually do know about terrorism, international terrorism, and all that before 9/11. So, that's something I actually learned about. So, yeah. I should just tell everyone to go to hell. Yeah. Got that. Let's be honest, kids and teens. Gotcha. The real question is whether truly realistic. Ooh, suns. Yep. Yeah, it does show coast that it could talk about matters and stuff. But we're gonna go for it. With all that said, I'm not prepared to actually talk about the interview. I want to see what is going to be brought into the table that's new and what's going to bring in the table that is old in this interview. 6 days of Fallujah, not trying to make a political commentary, creator says. The interview with the publisher of the controversial Iraq War shooter. 2021, not 2009. And further ado, I'm going to talk about this next time. Other than that, ciao.